Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into the world of international education, looking specifically at, well, how things stand in 2025.
Right. And it's a complex picture, isn't it? You've got geopolitics, economics, new governments, technology moving so fast. It all shapes this landscape.
It really does. It's this huge interconnected system.
Yeah. And the global demand for education just keeps growing. So understanding where students are going, why they're going there, and how things like digital platforms fit in, it's
Yeah,
crucial.
absolutely. So that's our mission for this deep dive. Cut through the complexity and highlight the really key trends shaping international education this year.
We're drawing on a pretty comprehensive report here. It covers mobility, digital shifts, workforce needs, you name it.
Exactly. Think of this as your quick way to get up to speed on the big changes. Okay, so where do we start? Maybe with something that feels like a major shakeup, these shifts in global student mobility.
Yeah, that's a big one,
Mm.
especially looking at the major English-speaking destinations. Policy changes in 2024, they've had a real measurable impact.
Measurable how? What are the numbers telling us?
Well, they're quite stark, actually. If you compare 2023 with, say, January to September 2024, Canada saw processed applications drop by 46%.
46%. Wow.
Yeah. Australia down 36%, the UK down 16%. Even the US saw an 11% dip comparing their fiscal 23 to Jan-Aug 24.
Those are those are not small fluctuations. That's significant movement. What's behind it all? It can't just be random.
No, definitely not. There are a few key things stacking up. First, visa policies have gotten tougher.
Okay.
The financial proof needed. Canada basically doubled it for some students,
Yeah.
and there's much more scrutiny on why someone wants to study there. Australia's genuine temporary entrant rules are a good example.
Right, so governments are trying to be more selective, maybe manage numbers better.
That seems to be the goal, but it definitely creates hurdles for genuine students, too.
Makes sense. What else?
Second, there's uncertainty around post-graduation work opportunities. That's a huge factor for international students.
You mean like staying on to work after finishing their degree?
Exactly. Canada, for instance, made changes to its post-graduation work permit, the PGWP. That permit is often a key step towards permanent residency, so any changes there. It makes people rethink their long-term plans.
I see. That would definitely influence decisions.
And third, you just can't ignore the rising cost of living globally. Inflation is hitting hard. So studying in already expensive places like the UK or the US, it's becoming a much bigger financial stretch.
Okay, so tougher visas, uncertain work prospects, and rising costs. It paints a picture. What are the ripple effects then? Fewer students must mean more than just empty lecture seats.
Oh, absolutely. The bigger picture impacts are pretty wide-ranging. Economically, fewer students mean less revenue for universities, obviously, but also less money flowing into local economies.
Right.
That report mentioned international students brought something like CAD 22 billion into Canada's economy in 2022. A drop in numbers really impacts that.
22 billion, that's massive. Are there other, maybe less obvious consequences?
Yeah, definitely. Think about skill shortages. Many of these countries rely on international graduates, especially in STEM fields, healthcare.
Hmm.
So fewer international students graduating could actually make those skill gaps worse. That affects innovation, service delivery, the whole nine yards.
Okay, so some traditional pathways are getting tougher, but, nature abhors a vacuum.
hmm
Where are students looking instead? Are other places becoming more attractive?
That's exactly what the data suggests. The report highlights the rise of non-Anglophone destinations. Think Germany, France, Finland. They're emerging as really strong alternatives.
Interesting. What makes them stand out? Let's take Germany first.
Okay, Germany. They saw a 3% growth in international students in 2023-24, hosting around 380,000. A big part of the draw is their Skilled Immigration Act.
How so?
It makes it easier for graduates to work more hours during study and offers clearer routes to permanent residency. And the huge factor, tuition fees are incredibly low, often free at public universities, even for international students.
Free tuition. Yeah, that's hard to beat. What about France?
France is also seeing strong growth, up 5% in 2023-24, with about 436,000 international students. They're really focusing on integration things like free French language courses, more housing support.
And tuition.
Again, significantly subsidized at public universities, much more affordable than the big Anglophone options generally.
So affordability is a massive driver here.
Yeah.
And Finland. You don't always hear them mentioned in the same breath.
Finland's been making real strides. They've seen a big jump in applications for English taught programs, especially in business and healthcare.
Okay.
And they've reformed residency rules to be more welcoming, allowing families to join, pathways to permanent settlement. Plus, they've boosted scholarships, particularly for students from developing nations.
So it's a clear trend. As some doors get harder to open, others are actively making themselves more appealing. Let's circle back to Canada for a second. That 46% drop you mentioned. The report dug into their student cap specifically, right?
It did, and it really shows the scale of the shift. Beyond that 46% drop in processed applications, there was also a notable increase in withdrawn applications in 2024.
Meaning students applied and then changed their minds.
Exactly. Over 23,000 withdrawn applications in 2024 alone. That's a 5% increase over the total number withdrawn between 2019 and 2023 combined. It suggests a lot of rethinking going on.
Wow. And those PGWP changes we talked about, how directly are they playing into this?
They're really hitting those long-term calculations. The PGWP was such a big draw for Canada, that pathway to work experience and maybe residency. Changing the rules just injects uncertainty. Students have to ask, what are my actual prospects after graduation now?
So Canada's in this tricky spot, isn't it? Trying to manage the system's sustainability.
Right. Managing strain on services, protecting the domestic labor market, those are the arguments.
But potentially losing out on global talent to other countries? Maybe these emerging destinations we just discussed.
That's the balancing act. Critics worry Canada's losing its competitive edge, potentially missing out on skilled people who could really contribute. It's a big debate.
A delicate one, for sure. Good, let's pivot a bit. Away from specific countries and towards a force-changing education everywhere, digital transformation, AI, tech. The report really flags this.
Yeah, and it's moving beyond just hype. AI is actually being woven into education now, personalizing learning, making operations more efficient.
Can you give some examples? How does AI personalize learning?
Sure. Think tools that adapt course content to your specific learning speed and style, or chatbots providing instant answers whether you're applying and have questions, or you're a current student needing info on course requirements.
Okay, like instant support.
Exactly. And even in recruitment, institutions are using predictive analytics to find applicants who are not just academically strong, but also a good fit for the university community.
That sounds incredibly efficient. What about the virtual side? VR, AR, is that catching on?
It is. Virtual engagement is getting much more immersive. Imagine virtual campus tours from halfway across the world.
Right.
Or science students doing complex lab simulations using VR without needing physical equipment. And online platforms are getting better at building actual communities, connecting students and faculty globally.
The report had some numbers on this adoption, didn't it? AI and chatbots.
It did. AI adoption in education apparently jumped from 35% to 50% between 2023 and 2024. That's, what, a 42% growth rate? Pretty fast.
And chatbots.
Even faster. Institutions using them went from 20% to 45% in the same period. That's a 125% increase.
Wow. So these tools are really being integrated quickly. How does this tech shift help the institutions themselves operationally?
Big time. AI is automating things like verifying application documents that cuts workload and processing time significantly. Some data suggests up to 60% reduction.
60%, that's huge.
Yeah. And data analytics help match students to the right programs. All this efficiency adds up. The report mentions an average 25% cut in admin costs through AI. Plus, virtual fairs and localized content help them reach a much wider, more diverse pool of potential students globally.
And the immersive stuff? VR, AR in the classroom. Is it actually helping students learn better?
Early signs point that way. The report cites, I think, a 15% increase in comprehension for students using VR lab simulations compared to traditional methods.
Interesting.
And AR can make complex things, like molecular structures or historical sites, much easier to grasp visually. Interactive classrooms with smart boards, AI platforms, they're making learning more dynamic.
Sounds promising. But what about the big picture? Equity, accessibility, can tech help level the playing field?
That's the real potential, isn't it? AI translation tools can break down language barriers. Online programs are often cheaper, reducing financial hurdles. And features like real-time captions or text-to-speech make learning more accessible for students with disabilities.
Yeah.
Technology really could democratize education if used right.
Absolutely. Okay, let's tackle another major factor, affordability. It's always been an issue, but the report suggests it's becoming even more critical.
It really is. It heavily influences where students choose to go. We're seeing tuition fees in those major Anglophone countries rising, on average about 5% per year over the last 5 years.
5% annually. That adds up quickly.
It does. And then add living costs, especially in big cities, which can be 20% higher than elsewhere. It's a huge financial burden.
Does the report compare costs across countries?
Yes, it gives averages. For instance, Canada, average annual tuition around 22,000 USD, plus maybe $15,000 for living. Australia is similar.
Okay.
Compare that to Germany, average tuition around $2,000 USD, living costs maybe $12,000. Big difference. The US and UK tend to be highest overall, and scholarship availability varies a lot too.
So costs are climbing in popular spots. What's being done to make international education more affordable then?
Yeah.
Are there solutions?
There's definitely more focus on it. Expanding scholarships is key. Germany adding 10,000 STEM scholarships. Canada's new $20 million global talent program. Those are examples.
Right.
More flexible payment plans are becoming common too. And letting students work more hours while studying helps Germany bump the limit from 10 to 20 hours a week, Australia from 20 to 24.
Little things that can make a difference.
Exactly. And efforts to cut living costs, more affordable housing options, transport subsidies, meal plans. Institutions are trying different things.
And what's the broader impact of this affordability crunch?
Well, it's definitely pushing students towards those emerging markets we talked about, places offering good education at lower costs. It also means financial aid becomes crucial for diversity, helping students from lower income backgrounds get access. Ultimately, countries that nail affordability gain a competitive edge in attracting global talent.
It's also interconnected.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, sustainability. This seems to be moving up the agenda for universities too.
Absolutely. It's gone from being kind of a side issue to a core part of how many institutions operate and see themselves. We're seeing lots of green campus initiatives.
Like what specifically?
Energy efficient buildings, switching to renewable energy sources, better waste reduction and recycling programs. You see ambitious goals like the University of California aiming for carbon neutrality by 2025.
And it's not just about the buildings, right? It's getting into the curriculum too.
Precisely. Sustainability concepts are being woven into all sorts of courses. And dedicated programs, renewable energy, climate science, sustainable business are seeing enrollment climbs. Plus, there's more collaborative research happening, universities partnering up on climate change solutions, sustainable agriculture, green tech. Think projects linked to things like the European Green Deal.
Does the report compare how different regions are doing on sustainability?
It does. It shows different priorities. Europe tends to lead on green energy adoption and setting tough carbon reduction targets. Other regions might be focusing more on, say, biodiversity or water resources locally.
And how do students and staff get involved? It can't just be top-down.
No, engagement is key. Lots of awareness campaigns, green your routine type things. Student-led sustainability clubs are really active. Some places even have incentive programs for greener behavior.
Is there real money behind this? Are universities investing financially?
Yes, significantly more now. They're using things like green bonds for eco-friendly buildings, partnering with renewable energy companies, and there's been a definite rise in research grants for sustainability projects. The report mentioned a 20% increase in 2024.
So a serious shift in priorities. Okay, another critical area,
Yeah.
mental health. Student well-being seems like a much bigger focus now.
It absolutely is. There's a growing recognition of the need for strong support systems and proactive wellness initiatives. It's become central.
What kinds of things are institutions doing?
We're seeing a big expansion in counseling services, more accessible options like 24/7 helplines, online therapy, reaching students where they are.
That accessibility is key.
Definitely. And integrated wellness programs are popping up: meditation spaces, yoga classes, stress management workshops. Peer support networks are also growing students, helping students, which helps reduce stigma.
The report compared mental health support across regions too, right? What did that show?
It showed some disparities. The counselor-to-student ratio, for example, tends to be lower in places like Asia-Pacific and Africa compared to North America or Europe. Availability of 247 support also varies.
Interesting.
What's also interesting is that student satisfaction doesn't always track perfectly with the amount of resources. Quality of care, cultural sensitivity, communication, those really matter too.
Makes sense. How are students and staff engaging with these initiatives?
Awareness campaigns like Let's Talk are making a difference, opening up conversations. Digital tools, Calm, Headspace apps, things like that are being integrated, and there's more effort to make support culturally relevant for diverse student populations.
And like sustainability, is this backed by more funding?
Yes, budgets for mental health services have risen quite a bit, the report suggests, around 30% over 5 years. Plus, more partnerships with external healthcare providers and even scholarships for students going into mental health fields.
That's really positive. Okay, related to well-being, but maybe more about managing external shocks, crisis preparedness. How are institutions getting ready for disruptions?
Yeah, in today's world, resilience is crucial. Many places are using risk assessment frameworks now, identifying vulnerabilities like natural disasters, cyber threats, pandemics.
Right.
You see comprehensive plans like University of Melbourne's Campus Resilience Plan. They're thinking ahead about different scenarios.
So what happens when a crisis does hit? What makes for a good response?
Having a dedicated crisis management team is key, coordinating across admin, IT, student services, security. Strong digital infrastructure is vital too for remote learning continuity and data security. And clear, reliable communication channels are absolutely essential.
Does preparedness vary much by region?
The report suggests it does. More institutions in North America and Europe seem to have formal plans compared to other regions. Emergency fund availability also differs. But again, student satisfaction with responses depends not just on the plan, but on communication and the actual support provided during the crisis.
So what kind of support are we talking about during a crisis?
Things like robust emergency alert systems, Alert US as an example, scaling up mental health support, quickly virtual counseling, hotlines, and emergency financial aid like the UK's Hardship Fund for students facing sudden difficulties.
A multi-pronged approach then. Okay, let's look forward now. How is education adapting to what the global workforce actually needs?
This is a huge focus area. Institutions are really trying to align what they teach with job market demands. That means more skill-based curricula, stronger industry partnerships, and more experiential learning.
What does a skill-based curriculum look like in practice?
It means programs focusing on specific in-demand skills, data analytics, AI, green tech, maybe offering micro-credentials or certifications in those areas. It also means deep partnerships with companies for internships, co-op programs like University of Waterloo's, actual job placements, and incorporating more hands-on work, real projects, case studies, field work so theory connects to practice.
How does this alignment look across different regions? Are the focus areas different?
Yeah, there are regional variations. North America has a strong focus on tech and healthcare. Europe emphasizes engineering and business skills. Asia-Pacific is big in IT and biotech. Africa is focusing on skills for agriculture, renewable energy, infrastructure. Graduate employment rates reflect these focuses.
Which specific sectors are booming? Where are institutions trying to prepare students most urgently?
Well, STEM fields remain crucial: science, tech, engineering, math. Lots of projected job growth there. The green economy is another massive one. IRENA estimates maybe 38 million jobs by 2030.
Yeah.
And anything related to digital transformation, cybersecurity, cloud computing, digital marketing demand is intense across the board.
And how are universities investing to make this alignment happen?
More scholarships targeted at these high-growth fields, supporting upskilling through things like Coursera or ADX microcredentials, and building the right infrastructure: new labs, innovation centers, tech hubs.
Makes sense, ensuring graduates are ready for the jobs of tomorrow. Let's drill down into one specific pathway for practical skills. Vocational education. Is that becoming more important?
Definitely. There's a growing appreciation for vocational pathways, hands-on, skills-based education that directly meets industry needs.
What's driving that?
We're seeing more specialized training programs in fields like healthcare, tech, construction. Apprenticeships and internships are getting more embedded, think the UK's apprenticeship levy. And industry certifications, maybe from places like Coursera or LinkedIn Learning, are gaining a lot of value as direct routes to jobs.
How do the outcomes look regionally for vocational training?
Often very strong. In many places, employment rates for vocational grads are really high, sometimes better than traditional academic routes for specific sectors. Countries with strong dual education systems, like in parts of Europe, tend to excel here.
Which industries are leaning heavily on vocational training?
Healthcare is a big one. Medical assistants, practical nurses. Technology relies on it too: coding boot camps, cybersecurity training, and renewable energy needs skilled installers for solar, wind turbines. Vocational training is key there.
And how is this type of education funded?
Often through government subsidies. Germany's apprenticeship model is famous. Scholarships exist too. And public-private partnerships are really important industry, helping fund and shape programs to ensure they meet real needs.
So a vital piece of the puzzle for workforce development.
Right.
Another engine of progress, research hubs. How do they fit into this global picture?
Research hubs are absolutely critical. They bridge that gap between academic discovery and real-world application. They drive innovation by creating synergy between universities and industry.
What's their specific role in that innovation ecosystem?
They foster interdisciplinary work, bringing different experts together, like at the Cambridge Center for Advanced Research in Energy Efficiency. They build those crucial industry partnerships. MIT Media Lab is a classic example. And they create global networks for sharing knowledge and talent, like CERN.
Can you give examples from different regions? Where are some leading hubs?
Sure. We mentioned MIT and Stanford in the US. In Europe, you have Fraunhofer in Germany doing applied research and CERN for physics. Asia Pacific has OSTAR in Singapore, Riken in Japan, strong in areas like nanotech and health. And even in Africa, you have emerging hubs like CSR in South Africa or ICP in Kenya, working on things like agriculture and energy.
And how do they make that academia-industry collaboration actually happen?
Through active technology transfer, getting research out of the lab and into use, like Stanford's role in Silicon Valley. By developing talent through industry-linked internships and fellowships, and often by hosting startup incubators, helping new companies grow from research ideas.
Where does the money come from for all this?
It's a mix. Big government grants are a major source globally, hundreds of billions annually. Significant contributions from the private sector through partnerships, and international funding from foundations or global bodies.
A complex funding landscape for a vital function. Okay, finally, let's look at emerging markets. You mentioned them earlier as alternatives. How are they changing the global education scene?
They really are transforming it. Places in Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, they're becoming much more dynamic hubs for education, attracting more international students.
What's the main draw?
Affordability is often a big factor. Malaysia, for instance, can be significantly cheaper than the U.S. Cultural and linguistic diversity is appealing too, and governments are actively investing. Brazil had its Science Without Borders program. Indonesia offers STEM scholarships. They're trying to build their capacity and reputation.
What are some specific trends or strengths in these regions?
Well, Latin America often shines in areas like tourism management. Africa is building STEM capacity, attracting research funding. Southeast Asia is leveraging its tech advancements and location, popular for tech, business, medicine, and international student numbers are growing fast across these regions.
How are they driving innovation within their own education systems?
Many are really embracing technology in teaching. We're seeing more public-private partnerships to build infrastructure and programs, and more regional collaboration between institutions is strengthening the whole ecosystem.
And funding for this growth, where's that coming from?
Governments are often putting in scholarships and subsidies. There are investments in campus upgrades, digital infrastructure, and international bodies like UNESCO and the World Bank provide crucial support too, helping build capacity.
Fascinating. So these emerging markets are definitely ones to watch. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today. Let's try to synthesize. What are the main threads running through all this?
Yeah, a few big themes really stand out. First, adaptability and innovation are just non-negotiable for institutions now. The landscape is changing too fast.
Right.
Second, tackling affordability and prioritizing student mental health are absolutely critical for access and just a positive student experience. Third, digital tech is obviously transformative, creating opportunities but also challenges. Then there's the growing importance of sustainability and crisis preparedness. These are becoming core responsibilities. And finally, that constant need to align education with what the workforce actually needs is crucial for graduate success.
And it all connects, doesn't it? You can't really separate these issues. It highlights the need for resilience, collaboration across borders, and always keeping the student experience front and center.
Exactly.
So based on this deep dive into the report, what are the absolute key takeaways for someone listening?
I'd say, first, institutions need robust crisis management and serious sustainability plans. Second, foster partnerships across borders between education and industry. Third, keep the focus firmly on affordability, mental health support, and career readiness for students. And fourth, leverage digital tools wisely for better access and more personalized learning.
That's a great summary. This has been incredibly insightful, really unpacking the forces shaping international education right now. Thank you so much for sharing all that.
My pleasure. It's certainly a dynamic and important field to track.
Absolutely. And for you, our listener, as you think about all these shifts, the changing destinations, the tech, the costs, the focus on well-being and future jobs, here's a final thought to mull over. How might these global trends influence your own path, whether it's learning, career, or just how you see the world connecting? Something to consider. Until our next deep dive, thanks for joining us.